When you scroll past a perfectly curated social media post from a mega celebrity, or you see them on a billboard for their latest lifestyle brand, there is this overwhelming expectation of absolute perfection.
Oh, for sure. It's presented to you as this completely frictionless, glittering reality.
Right, like a modern-day fairy tale where the clothes are always flawless, the lighting is perpetually golden hour, and, every single aspect of their life just looks completely effortless.
But it is entirely by design.
Yeah.
We are sold the illusion that the perfection we see on the outside, like the beautiful aesthetics and the inclusive marketing, well, we assume it extends all the way down to the structural foundations of their empire.
Yeah, but then you peek behind the heavy velvet curtain of that empire, right into the actual operational engine of these celebrity-run households and businesses, and suddenly that pristine image just shatters into a million pieces.
It really does.
We are looking at a landscape that is incredibly chaotic, fundamentally disconnected, and honestly, deeply troubling. So, okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are going on a mission to examine a truly fascinating intersection of labor rights, brand authenticity, and consumer psychology.
It's a huge topic.
It is. And we are going to do this by using a recent wave of lawsuits, legal filings, and some really bizarre business pivots surrounding a major celebrity billionaire as our case study. But before we get into the details, you might be asking yourself, why should you care about a billionaire's household drama?
Which is a fair question.
Right, well, because understanding the mechanics of this mirage is really the ultimate armor to protect your own wallet from being manipulated by digital marketing.
Exactly. And before we dive in, let me set one overarching ground rule for our conversation today. Everything we are discussing regarding the domestic staff stems directly from claims made in recent legal filings.
So we're just looking at the official reports?
Right. So rather than repeating the word allegedly every other sentence and, bogging down the discussion, we want you, the listener, to know up front that we are operating under the lens of these being formal allegations. Our goal isn't to play judge and jury here.
No, not at all.
We are going to look at these reports objectively, focusing purely on what these claims and the subsequent business moves reveal about the broader culture of celebrity capitalism. We are really looking at what happens when the pursuit of an image overtakes the reality of running an ethical enterprise.
Yeah, and to really ground us in what we're talking about, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine working a job, just a normal day-to-day job. We're simply acknowledging the physical presence of your CEO by making eye contact is considered a fireable offense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is intense.
Right. We are not talking about a modern functional workplace here. We are talking about an environment that sounds much more like the rigid, plenishing hierarchies of a historical royal court. You are an employee. You are a peasant standing in the presence of a monarch. And that is exactly the atmosphere described in these recent labor reports.
It's a heavy analogy, but unfortunately, it sets the stage perfectly for the specifics of these claims. Let's look at the details surrounding a housekeeper, who the filings refer to as Hana.
Right, so Hana began working for this celebrity in 2019. And according to the reports, from the very beginning, basic legal requirements were simply ignored. We're talking about the denial of legally required meal breaks and rest breaks.
Just fundamental labor rights?
Exactly. If you are working a grueling 10 or 12-hour shift on a massive estate, skipping a lunch break isn't just an inconvenience, it's physical exhaustion. But it goes far beyond a missed break. The filings detail escalating mistreatment under a specific supervisor who allegedly began ruthlessly mocking Hana's background, mocking her accent, calling her stupid while she was just trying to scrub floors and do her job.
And it is crucial to note the timeline of the retaliation here, because it really speaks to the systemic issues at play. In 2024, Hana finally reported this daily mistreatment to human resources.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
Right, exactly. The supervisor was temporarily removed, but then shortly after, they were fully reinstated to their position of power.
And the absolute second that supervisor came back, the retaliation started. Hana's wages were slashed. She was making $41.66 an hour, and they dropped her down to $35 an hour for doing the exact same work, the exact same hours.
Purely as punishment for daring to go to HR.
Yes. And the human element of this is just devastating. There is an instance detailed where Hana was forced to stay late and miss a planned surprise birthday party that her family threw for her.
Oh, that is awful.
And the reason? The celebrity was having a dinner. Not a massive catered charity gala, just a regular Tuesday night dinner. But honestly, it gets so much worse. When Hana's brother tragically and suddenly died, She was denied time off to attend his funeral mass.
Unbelievable.
She was told to report to work immediately. And the staff mocked her grief, called her a liar, and forced her to perform degrading tasks while she was actively mourning her brother. And we should point out, this isn't even the first lawsuit of its kind against this celebrity. There was a previous housekeeper, Angelica, who claimed her bosses literally threw hangers at her.
To play devil's advocate for a moment, though, managing a sprawling billion-dollar estate is incredibly complex. It is essentially like running a mid-sized corporation.
Sure, there are a lot of moving parts.
Right. It is entirely possible that middle management and HR deliberately hid this from the CEO. The celebrity boss might have genuinely been completely in the dark about the wage slashing and the funeral denial.
Well, I have to push back on that, though. I understand the busy CEO defense, but we aren't talking about someone forgetting to file a minor piece of paperwork. How does a supposedly sophisticated corporate entity allow an HR department to reinstate an abusive supervisor and then immediately facilitate a punitive pay cut?
That is a very fair point.
Because HR literally has to sign off on payroll changes. You don't accidentally slash someone's hourly rate in a corporate accounting system.
Yeah.
This completely questions the structural integrity of these celebrity-run households. It is not just one rogue manager, it's an entire system failing to protect the most vulnerable people in the building.
What's fascinating here is the unique power dynamic inherent in private domestic employment. If we look at a traditional corporate environment, there are standard oversight.
Like actual HR compliance.
Exactly. You have compliance officers, anonymous tip lines, and a physical separation between your life and your work. But domestic labor exists in a uniquely vulnerable space. The workplace is someone's private, gated home. The wealth disparity between the employer and employee is astronomical.
Which makes it almost impossible to speak up.
And because these mansions are physically shielded from public view, the standard mechanisms of accountability just evaporate. There are no surprise OSHA inspections in a celebrity's private kitchen, leaving workers highly susceptible to extreme abuses of power.
Which perfectly explains Hana's next desperate move. She realized HR was actively working against her, so she tried to bypass the middle management hierarchy entirely. The reports say she wrote a lengthy, highly apologetic note directly to the celebrity boss.
She was basically begging for help, operating under that exact assumption you mentioned, that the boss just didn't know how bad it was.
Right. A completely desperate attempt to appeal to the fundamental humanity of the person at the very top of the food chain.
And the betrayal that followed is just shocking. The celebrity took that handwritten note and immediately handed it over to the very supervisor who was abusing Hana.
Which naturally sealed her fate and led to severe, immediate punishment. Hana was threatened with termination. She was banished to clean the outdoor dog areas.
Just completely degraded.
Yeah, she was denied access to the indoor restrooms. And then came the truly bizarre new rules. If the celebrity entered a room, Hana was commanded to act like a ghost.
A ghost.
Yes. She had to physically disappear, make absolutely no eye contact, and essentially pretend she didn't exist as a human being.
Yeah.
But honestly, here's where it gets really interesting for me, because I'm trying to wrap my head around the concept of the boss's water.
The boss's water? That is just so strange.
According to the filings, Hana was denied basic drinking water during her shifts because the water on the premises was designated strictly as the boss's. It sounds like something out of a dystopian sci-fi novel. You picture a barren world where the wealthy elite have hoarded and branded the basic elements of human survival. It's pure shock at the pettiness of it. I mean, you are a billionaire, and you are restricting a housekeeper from drinking tap water because it belongs to you.
That specific detail speaks volumes about the psychological concept of dehumanization. Think back to the architecture of 19th century Victorian manor houses.
Oh, right, with the servants' quarters.
Exactly. They were literally constructed with hidden servant hallways and concealed doors built into the walls. The wealthy elite physically built their homes so they never had to perceive the labor that sustained their lavish lifestyles.
So this is just a modern version of that.
Precisely. This modern ghost protocol is just the 21st century psychological version of a hidden hallway. It is a mechanism to completely insulate the ultra-wealthy from the humanity of their staff. If you don't have to look your employee in the eye, if they behave like invisible ghosts, you don't have to acknowledge their needs, their grief over a dead brother, or their basic human rights to water and rest. It paves the way for a total systemic empathy breakdown.
And that empathy breakdown clearly took a devastating physical toll. The daily torture resulted in Hana experiencing extreme anxiety, severe insomnia, and she reportedly bit all of her fingernails off down to the quick just from the stress.
That is heartbreaking.
She finally hit her absolute breaking point and quit in August of 2025. And now her lawyer is actively pushing for a class action lawsuit to uncover if other staff within this famous family's orbit are suffering the exact same fate.
And that class action push is vital because the isolation of domestic work makes it incredibly difficult for one person to speak out alone.
But this brings us to a really fascinating pivot point in our deep dive. Because if a business owner is this radically insulated from the human beings physically sweating and working inside their own home, well, how insulated are they from the reality of the millions of customers buying their products?
That is the critical connection to make. An internal empathy gap, a fundamental misunderstanding of the people around you. It almost always manifests externally in how a company treats its consumers.
Yes, and that external manifestation is exactly what we are seeing in their wildly erratic business pivots. Market watchers have been scratching their heads for a year.
Because the brand strategy just fell apart.
Exactly. This celebrity started with an incredibly authentic, wildly successful cosmetics line. It made total sense for their brand. But recently, it's been a scramble. They launched a vodka soda brand, realized the market was saturated, and hastily rebranded it into an electrolyte drink.
A complete 180 pivot.
Then they launched a baby line that completely flopped, largely because the core demographic following them on social media doesn't even have kids yet. Then there was a swimwear line that went viral for all the wrong reasons, with consumers complaining about terrible, unwearable fits.
It points to a brand frantically searching for an identity, throwing concepts at the wall to see what sticks without actually understanding the mechanics of the industries they are entering.
And the most glaring example of this total disconnect is their latest venture, a high-priced clothing line. The PR positioning was very clear. They were trying to emulate quiet luxury brands.
And for those who might not follow high fashion, quiet luxury is a very specific mechanism. Think of brands like The Row or Loro Piana.
Right, the really high-end stuff.
It is the aesthetic of silent wealth. No massive logos, no flashy branding. It relies entirely on hyper-premium fabrics like pure cashmere, the finest silk, and immaculate architectural tailoring. The value is in the invisible craftsmanship.
Right. And this celebrity brand priced their items like they were knocking on the door of quiet luxury, with basic pieces starting at $70 and going all the way up to $490. But let's look at the actual data. 82% of this celebrity's audience makes less than $100,000 a year.
So they're completely pricing out their core demographic.
Exactly. These are consumers who typically shop at accessible, fast fashion retailers. They are not dropping $100,000 on sweatpants on a Tuesday.
The fundamental mismatch between the premium product pricing and the financial reality of the addressable market is staggering.
And it would be one thing if the clothes were actually high quality, but they aren't. Consumers have been absolutely brutal. There was a $100 skirt that looks so flimsy it might disintegrate in a single wash cycle.
Oh, yikes.
A $120 top featuring an iron-on patch. Think about that. Quiet luxury, but they used a cheap adhesive patch that reportedly shrivels up and peels off the second it hits the heat of a dryer. A $300 belt. And the piece de resistance, $490 sweatshorts that literally appeared to be a cheap, thin pair of sweatpants unevenly hacked off with a pair of craft scissors.
Wow, that is really bad.
So what does this all mean? Is this brand failure a result of spectacularly bad market research, or is it just pure vanity?
It reminds me of a beloved local neighborhood diner that serves great $10 pancakes, suddenly deciding to force $500 imported caviar onto their regular Sunday breakfast crowd.
That is a great analogy.
It's not just a bad product choice, it is a fundamental, almost arrogant misunderstanding of exactly who is sitting at your table.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are observing is the classic, often fatal life cycle of influencer brands.
Well, initially, a creator taps into an authentic niche, like the cosmetics line. They know the product, they use it, and the audience trusts their expertise.
Makes sense.
But once that initial authenticity is exhausted, there is a dangerous temptation to blindly license their name to any manufacturer who promises high margins. The fatal error is mistaking a massive social media follower count for an addressable market.
Oh, I see.
Just because 100 million people look at your beautifully lit photos online does not mean 100 million people have the disposable income or even the desire to buy a $490 pair of poorly cut sweatshorts.
And that deep disconnect between the glossy image the brand wants to project and the incredibly flawed reality it actually delivers brings us to perhaps the most cynical controversy of all. the illusion of inclusivity.
This is where the marketing optics clash directly with the hard realities of supply chain economics.
Right. When this clothing brand launched, it was aggressively marketed as being deeply size inclusive. The PR blitz was relentless. They claimed they would offer sizes ranging from XXS all the way up to 4X, and they really patted themselves on the back for being champions of all body types.
But the reality check for the consumer was a completely different story.
Walk us through what actually happened on launch day.
Well, consumers who were genuinely excited about this inclusivity logged on at exactly 12 p.m. for the drop.
Okay.
And they found that every single item was fully in stock for the straight sizes, the smalls, the mediums, the larges. But the extended sizes, the 1X through 4X, they instantly showed up as sold out the second the clock struck noon.
Wait, instantly?
Instantly. On some pages, the size filter dropdown didn't even go past an XL. So market watchers have two working theories here. Theory one is that the brand utilized artificial scarcity.
So they just didn't make enough on purpose.
Exactly. They only manufactured a tiny microscopic handful of plus sizes just so they could instantly sell out, generate hype, and look incredibly popular.
And theory two.
Theory two, which from a manufacturing standpoint is highly probable and far more cynical, is that they never actually manufactured the extended sizes at all.
Are you serious? Why would they do that?
To understand why, you have to look at the mechanism of pattern grading. To scale a straight size medium into a 3X or 4X, you cannot just add 2 inches of fabric everywhere. The proportions of the human body change.
Right. That makes total sense.
It requires entirely new pattern blocks, completely different fit models, altered fabric yields, and sometimes structural changes to the garment itself to ensure it sits correctly. It is a massive, separate financial investment.
Oh, I see.
So the theory is they chose not to make that expensive investment, but they put the 4X option on the website so it would gray out, using it as a cheap PR stunt to reap the praise of looking inclusive without actually paying for it.
I just feel so much frustration on behalf of the listener here. I mean, you are telling people, we see you, we value you, we have clothes for you, and then you completely pull the rug out. Is this kind of inclusive bait and switch even legal? Or is it just a massive, unregulated loophole in digital marketing?
It is incredibly deceptive.
I know you listening to this right now have probably experienced this exact frustration. You get a targeted ad, you click the link excited to buy something that finally fits. And mysteriously, only the most common straight sizes exist. It feels manipulative and entirely hollow.
This raises an important question about the nature of performative corporate values in the modern era. If we synthesize everything we have looked at today, a clear pattern emerges.
Yeah, a really disturbing one.
Whether we are examining the severe labor allegations regarding the dehumanization of domestic staff or the sizing controversy alienating hopeful consumers, that both stem from the exact same root cause.
He is choosing optics over reality every single time.
Precisely. It is a corporate culture that prioritizes the optics of a premium, inclusive, flawlessly run empire over the actual infrastructure and empathy required to build one.
Right.
They want the glowing PR of being a size-inclusive fashion brand without paying the hefty manufacturing costs pattern grading. Just as they want the luxury of invisible, perfect domestic service without affording those workers basic human dignity, living wages, or legally mandated rest breaks.
It is a towering house of cards built entirely on glossy marketing. To summarize what we have unpacked today, there is a staggering, heartbreaking contrast between the glamorous products being sold to the public and the reality of the vulnerable workers like Hana who are trapped behind closed doors. Not to mention the deeply frustrated consumers who are left holding the bag on expensive, poorly made, exclusive products.
And this is where we turn it over to you, the listener. The next time you are presented with the glossy marketing of a celebrity brand, consider how your own consumption habits might shift.
Yeah, definitely something to think about.
It is becoming increasingly vital to look past the heavily filtered aesthetic and demand to see the real receipts. How does this company treat its most vulnerable workers when the cameras are off? How does it truly respect its most loyal customers at checkout? The ultimate value of a brand shouldn't just be in its famous name, but in its supply chain of empathy.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over today. As we move deeper into an era of artificial intelligence and hyper-curated, entirely digital realities, it is becoming easier and cheaper than ever to fake perfection.
It really is.
Will this ghost protocol, this intense desire to completely erase the messy human element of the working class, become the new standard for how the ultra-wealthy interact with the world? Or are we finally seeing the breaking point, Well, these kinds of lawsuits and consumers finally saying enough and refusing to buy the bait-and-switch products force a new era of radical transparency. Because right now, that flawless image we talked about at the very beginning, well, it is starting to look a lot less like a fairy tale and a lot more like a mirage. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking the hard questions and keep questioning the narratives you were sold. We will see you next time.